Good morning, dangerous women. There's a story in Judges chapter 9 about a ruthless, murdering madman who would have fitted really well into ISIS. He'd captured the town, and the Bible says that all the men and the women and the leaders of the city ran to the top of a big tower and they shut themselves in. But in doing that, they prayed right into Abimelech's hands because he was into burning people alive right there in their place of refuge. He came up to the door to light the fire. And verse 53 says, "And a certain woman threw an upper millstone on Abimelech's head and crushed his skull. He quickly called his armor-bearer and said, 'Draw your sword and kill me, lest they say of me, a woman killed him.' So the young man thrust him through, and he died." Who killed that jerk? It wasn't his armor-bearer. It wasn't a sword. No one's going to live with a fractured skull. We don't even know that woman's name. She's called a certain woman. We don't know her name, but we know what she did. We know she had great courage. We know she had fortitude. We know that her determination, which maybe had brought her so much pain and heartache over her life, saved the whole town from burning. We don't know the battles she had. Maybe she was childless. Maybe she'd had postnatal depression. Maybe her husband divorced her because she only produced girls. Maybe she battled cockroaches and bankruptcy and grinding poverty and the death of her husband. Maybe her family rejected her because they already had too many girls. We don't know her name because she is every woman, and she is a dangerous woman. She knows what it is to be down and out and to have the determination to get through and not be defeated again. This mama wants to live. She's like that phoenix we talked about before, rising from the ashes of her own defeats and her mistakes and the abuse and degradation that's been heaped on her. And she's not going to take no for an answer if it's not God saying no, because she has worked too hard for some bullying jerk to come and destroy her town and her livelihood. This is a woman of courage and common sense, because everyone else is terrified. This guy is a master of intimidation. They heard what he did to the last town, and they had no hero to rescue him. But certain woman isn't intimidated. She's way past that. She's been through too much, and she's reached that point, that dangerous, dangerous point in the life of every someone who's been bullied and victimized and rejected and overlooked, and the butt of everyone else's guilt and shame projected onto her. She's got nothing to lose. She's not afraid anymore. She doesn't know when that happened, but there came a time when fear no longer held her in bondage, shame no longer made her silent, undeserved guilt no longer crippled her courage. Somewhere, over the years, the shackles that kept her from being true to herself had fallen off. And so, while the leaders of the town are tearing their hair out and yelling at each other to do something, while the townsfolk are screaming and crying out for someone to save them, certain woman is looking for a weapon. She's going to kill that sucker. She's not looking for a sword or a shield or a spear. That's for soldiers. She's not a soldier, but she is fierce. And she finds the most unlikely weapon. It's not a weapon at all. It's a domestic appliance, like a coffee grinder or a blender. A millstone is used just for grinding flour, and it's just laying over there by the wall, discarded, useless, overlooked. Do you know how many women feel that way? Just like they're laying over to one side and they just don't feel useful anymore, and they feel completely discarded. But I want to say this to you. It does not matter what the enemy has to say about you. If you believe what he says, you will be rendered impotent and you will stay by that wall until you die. But if you just get up like she did, everything will change. That millstone was heavy, but it didn't matter to certain woman. She's been lifting heavy weights for years. The weight of her aloneness and her longing and her pain. Her muscles are strong. No one notices her looking over the wall to make sure where her enemy is. No one notices her bending over to pick up the stone, that huge stone. No one watches her struggle to carry it over to the parapet of the tower. But they notice its effect. Bang! There's a loud thud and the stone hits the dirt. But not before it smashes Abimelech's skull open and his brains just splatter out all over that wall and onto the ground. Even in these death throes, Abimelech did what every person who despises women would do. He calls out to his mates and he says, "Quick, Come and kill me. Come and save me from the ignominy of looking like a woman killed me. He did everything he could to make sure that he erased her from history, especially his own history. But that dangerous woman had smashed his head open like a ripe watermelon. There are times when a woman breaks through the walls of death to destroy evil and save the day. But instead of being grateful, the prejudices and fears of the people around them obliterate their names from the records. No worries. They're not obliterated from God's records. He sees everything they did. He watched that woman allow her history to shape her into the most courageous and life-giving friend that village would ever know. He's still doing that now. He's watching his dangerous women change the world.